Hi everyone, and welcome to the GuideWell Insights Lounge. This is Kate Warnock coming to you from day 2 of the Synapse Summit here in Tampa, and we have an esteemed guest joining us, Mr. Steve Barsh. Steve, welcome.
Thank you for having me.
Steve, I know that you were on stage this morning. You've had a big role here at the Synapse Summit, but let's start with the fact that you are the managing partner at Dreamit Ventures, which is, I imagine, why they asked you to come down and help kick us off for day 2. So, you know, Steve, I was looking at your background, and you had a successful exit from a company that you started at age 20. All right, so you are an entrepreneur from the get-go, from the very early stages. You also lived through the tech boom of the 90s, so I'm wondering from you for our first question, have we learned from the lessons of the past? Are we repeating the same mistakes in today's innovation economy, or are we smarter now?
I think we're smarter in some ways we haven't learned. I think the areas where we're smarter, there's people who understand that you can do lean development and building companies much more efficiently. The cost of capital to build a company and get it off the ground, what used to take tens of millions of dollars, you can do, Amazon Web Services exists. Those types of companies you can build much more quickly and much more inexpensively. I think a lot of entrepreneurs still make a lot of mistakes though, where they don't understand the fundamental assumptions behind their business, and they start building and doing all kinds of things before they've de-risked the kind of 1 or 2 most critical assumptions. And I see that just as a mistake that just keeps going on through time and around the world. So.
How about it? Okay, and I'm sure that Dreamit is doing its part to
try.
help. All right, well, before we get there, let's ask your next question. All right, so you also have a global perspective on innovation, technology, and investing. Where is the U.S. strongest, and what country is going to eat our lunch? What must we do to keep our competitive advantage?
Okay, so I think the U.S. is very, very strong. We see great companies come from the U.S. Companies that apply to Dreamit Ventures apply from all over the world, about 40 different countries. We have a very high number, though, that come in from the United States, Israel, and Europe will be the highest concentrations. I think the companies that are kind of eating our lunch already that are much stronger in innovation would be Israel. Places in Asia, China. I mean, it's just much more prevalent. The venture capital flowing there is much stronger. The markets are much stronger. I think the United States still has some distinct advantages. I think, in the United States, you're not as afraid of failing. In a lot of Asian cultures, there's a fear to fail.
Yeah.
Right, so that gives people an edge in the United States, but those would be the countries that, to me, it's not a win or lose. We just see great innovations happening in those countries. Really great.
Terrific. All right. So what makes the strongest, longest lasting match between a company and a Dreamit portfolio, between a company in the Dreamit portfolio and a company working to see over the horizon in the industry? So that's what you have on your LinkedIn profiles. You work with these companies, so you're really trying to matchmake. What is it that's going to make that relationship last?
So I think what you're referring to, so when we have companies go through Dreamit, we're a venture fund, but we also accelerate before we invest. A part of that process that we take companies through, we do something called customer sprints, which we're the outside partners, like healthcare systems, payers, providers, product manufacturers. I think what makes a lasting relationship with that type of customer, so when we have a startup that's in front of that type of customer, they're solving a big and urgent need, they're easy to deal with, it's an easy implementation, they can pilot it very easily and simply. Like in healthcare systems, can we have a young startup that's doing a digital health solution integrate with that healthcare system, but not do what's called a full EMR integration, the electronic medical records? That's a very heavy lift for an IT department of a hospital. So that's kind of when I say, is it lightweight? Is there an easy way to get started, prove the value, show and demonstrate the value? Those make those better relationships. And most importantly, they are solving a big, urgent, compelling need that payer, provider, the Philips of the world, the Siemens say, wow, this is a big and urgent pain point, and you're solving it in a really clever way.
Right, right. One thing that we've heard from other guests here in the lounge is that it's really about doing research on both sides of the table. As much as Dreamit, as a venture fund, wants to research the folks that you're investing in, it's equally important for those companies to do their research in the potential users, and really get educated that way. So hopefully that would help solve for that first problem that you said we keep going round and round and seeing those same mistakes.
Absolutely.
All right, another question for you. Can't not ask you about the whole 2018 headlines around the CRISPR baby.
Sure.
Came out of China. What is it that you're doing to work with companies in the Dreamit portfolio who really might be racing into that bleeding edge space where the ethics haven't not necessarily been defined? What kind of caution flags do you throw up and help keep them really aware of what the sensitivities might be?
Sure. It's a great question. I need a couple parts to the answer to that question. Number one is Dreamit, when we're investing in health tech companies, their digital health, medical devices, and sometimes diagnostics, we don't cross into life sciences. Something like CRISPR, gene therapy, that's squarely life sciences. We don't get into that space. But I can still give you a thought and opinion on it, because we do deal a lot of health companies. We've helped build and invest in probably 110 health companies in the last 7 years alone. We do a very high volume. To me, ethics are important. Are you solving a big and urgent problem? I think sometimes headlines get overblown. If you are doing designer babies that I'm trying to pick the color of hair, pick the color of eyes, I want a girl versus a boy, that's one thing. Our family has dealt with serious medical issues, genetic medical issues that get passed down generation to generation. And when you're dealing with situations like that, which is what things like gene therapy, CRISPR, and those types of technologies are really dealing with, there's a great line, at least I heard it on MASH 20 years ago. There used to be a great line. They'd say, you know what, there are no atheists in foxholes. When the shells are falling, you're like, oh my God. So when you're in those types of situations and you're facing a life-threatening, you know that you're passing down to your child a heart condition that'll probably kill them by the age of 30. You're passing down a leukodystrophy that 50% of the kids are going to die by the age of 10. To me, if there's a technology out there that can stop that from happening, you could do, just a quick note, you could do a stem cell transplant on that child when they're a year old and have them horribly suffer through that process. That's a crude form of gene editing. It is, and it's available technology today. Or if you could use gene therapy, IVF, PGD, and vitreofetalization with pre-implantation genetic diagnosis, or CRISPR to solve that problem for genetic disease, I'd almost think, why wouldn't you? That's my opinion on that topic. For Dreamit companies, they don't get that close to that edge. They're not dealing with like that kind of life-changing, controversial issue. We don't do life sciences. Okay,
I appreciate that though, but still appreciate the informed opinion that you have. So, all right, our final question for you, Steve. How do you keep the startup pipeline diverse so that all of society can benefit? Women, people of color. Let's make the pipeline look like the people it serves. How's Dreamit helping there?
So what Dreamit does, we've had programs in the past focused on women entrepreneurs. We've had programs in the past focused on diversity and minority entrepreneurs. I think generally what we're looking for is the strongest teams with the strongest leadership. We find women leaders are phenomenal. My wife is a serial entrepreneur and CEO who's wildly successful. That's not a Dreamit company, but we really look for diversity. It actually, in a lot of ways, adds strength to the portfolio, strength to the companies. We look at it as a good thing. We've had cohorts of Dreamit health companies where half of them are led by women. And that's actually just because that's the way it fell out. And to me, I'm ecstatic when that happens, just absolutely ecstatic that we can drive diversity and drive and build great companies and invest them over time.
That's really great to hear, and hopefully we continue to see that sort of engagement, because as you said, everyone is stronger when we have diversity and different ways of thinking and approaching problems. So Steve, Barsh, thank you so much for joining us here in the GuideWell Insights Lounge. This is Kate Warnock. Thanks for watching.